Welcome back to another episode of She Builds. We're back in the new year. Excited to see and hear from y'all. So, you know how this starts. Let us know where you're joining from. Hopefully, you are warm and you are inside if you are on the northeast of the US. And if you are in India, hopefully, you're enjoying your holiday because I know y'all were off today and super excited. So, I'm Brittany Wolfram. I have been on here a couple times, maybe, and super excited to be joining you from the DMV, not the DMV where you get your license, but the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia area. And Fatima, tell us a little bit about
Hi.
yourself.
Yes, hi. Fatima Kamal. I'm a principal specialist, SA, working with financial services customers. I was here, the last episode we hosted was on, S3 vectors, and I was here. So excited to start this new year with a list of another She Builds episodes. Yeah, I'm super excited to see what Jane has built for us. Also, I also joined from the Northern Virginia area. So got snowed in, but it's a beautiful day today.
Awesome. And hey, everybody. I've been on a few She Builds episodes. I'm a member of the core team. My name is Jane Ridge. I'm a senior solutions architect here at AWS. And I am coming today from North Carolina on the east coast of the US, where we do have a little bit of snow and ice, but thankfully still have electricity. So I can help bring the demo here today with you all.
So, Jane, what are we talking about today? I know you're super excited about this topic and passionate, but I'm curious, what are we talking about today as the viewers join?
Yeah, so we're talking about Nova Act, and Nova Act is one of those services. So let me step back and talk a little bit about that of what it is. So Nova Act is basically an AWS service, and it allows you to deploy AI agents to basically interact with user interface workflows. So think about web pages as you're going through and just like you would a human, you're taking a web page and you're going through and let's take the Amazon shopping site, and you're shopping for something. You might enter this is a service, or a product I want a coffee maker. You start looking through it, add it to your cart, check out, that kind of thing. So Nova Act is a service we have that helps automate some pieces of that, which is really cool. And it's part of our Nova family.
Awesome. So I know we just went through what Nova is in our simplest terms. We have a couple things that we're going to do today. We always start with, let's give a little background for a little bit, and then let's jump into a demo, which we will not tell you what the demo is just yet, but Jane has cooked something up for us. With that, Jane, should we ask the audience if anybody's used Nova Act yet? Would love to know if you've tried it out. Tell us in the audience. I know I have. If y'all were with us last July, Trevor Spiral and I actually got to showcase Nova Act when it was preview, so right before it was launching, and the New York Summit. But yeah, Fatima, have you used Nova Act yet?
Not yet. So I just started checking it out very recently.
Okay. It's kind of one of those things that's interesting because I know it first preview came out in March of last year. I think it was, Brittany. But I've discovered my customers are now just starting to kind of use it, ask questions about it. So I think it's one of those things where it's expanded over time. But it's really cool when you see it. I've showed it to my kids and we've talked through it. So I'm excited to kind of talk through that. And I see we have a question about use cases within Nova Act. So maybe if you want, I can jump into that and talk a little bit about what are the main areas that make sense for it. So a few cases, data entry automation is one of the ones. So think about if you have repetitive tasks where you're taking data, you're having to enter it into a web form of some kind, and you're wanting to do that scale, like things like that can take quite a bit of time. Also, if you're doing like web scraping monitoring, so I've had customers talk about things like they have a website that maybe they're looking for something like there's a big red X on something showcasing something's not working, right? But they have somebody who's like manually going to that now. You could deploy Nova Act to actually go to the website and look for patterns, things like that, and actually report that back to you. And then the big one is, and this is where a lot of my customers, I think, are seeing sort of time savings, is A lot of people are using it for like testing, automation. So when you think about like product releases, especially when you have applications that have like a GUI front end, you have teams that are having to go through and do unit testing, things of that nature. So now you can actually automate that testing to quite a large degree, which is, it's a time saver, obviously, if you think about that. I don't know, Brittany or Fatima, if there's any other kind of use cases that you've heard about with this outside of this.
No, I think you hit it on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do know there's another question coming up right afterwards, which I do know the answer to, but I don't know if anybody else wants to take this one.
Let's see. Is it a HIPAA verified service? I don't know that one. So Brittany, if you know that one offhand, I'm going to give it to you.
So because Nova is part of the Amazon Bedrock models, all Amazon Bedrock models, including Nova, come with an enterprise security that enables customers to build generative AI applications that support common data security and compliance standards, including HIPAA and GDPR. So it is very nice that that is all under the same umbrella. So you would have that security and reliability behind the scenes. Awesome. All right. So I know we're hopping in lots of questions. Keep the questions coming, but I'm sure you're wanting to start seeing some stuff. So I guess we should probably talk about human in the loop before we get into that demo, shouldn't we?
Yeah. So I'll give a little bit more background on kind of what makes Nova different, and I'll set you up a bit as we start to lean into the demo. And I promise the demo is coming. But so with traditional tools that you might have that could go through and, let's say, go to a website, enter data, click on buttons, oftentimes you're having to be very specific. I want you to go to the form that says first name, enter the first name. I want you to go to, it says last name. You need to click the button that says X, Y, and Z, for example. But the issue that you can run into is, sites change, things change. And so if you can instead give like natural language instructions, say, I want you to book travel for this person. I want you to take their preferences into account and then complete the booking. That would be like me talking to one of you and just saying that, or a travel agent, like, this is what I want to do, right? And we understand that. And we have enough context so we would understand where we should put the information, what buttons we should pick. So that's where Nova Act really can become powerful because, as we all know, like, interfaces don't stay static, they change, and it can start interpreting information. So automating pieces of this can be great, but there is also a feature in this of human in the loop. And there's sort of two reasons you might want to have humans in the loop, from at least as far as what my perspective and what I've seen with customers. A, validation. Like, you might be early in this journey and you might be like, hey, and you'll see this as we work through. I'm actually going to show you a trip booking on a sample travel site. But let's say you just want to make sure I'm not booking some destination that really doesn't fit a customer's needs. You might say, let's automate going through selecting the destination, but then I want a human to actually validate that's the right destination before we book it, for example. The other place that human in the loop becomes really important is if you see patterns where maybe there's an escalation from the agent that you want. So when we're looking at this, there is an agentic quality here that it's making decisions about this as a destination. This is, decisions I should be making about booking this. But you do want to look at, like, if it's seeing patterns that it doesn't understand, or there's data that potentially is kind of throwing off the agent, having human in the loop and actually having escalation patterns. Maybe you're looking at a trip costing over X amount of dollars, things of that nature. Those are other areas where a human in the loop can be really important with as you're building these applications. So always validation. You always want high confidence as you're building out these systems.
Now we have, if you have one more question, it says, can Can we build OCR tasks using Nova?
OCR tasks using, that's one, Brittany, I don't know if you've seen that pattern. There is a visual, I know that Nova Act does have the ability to actually look at visualizations on the page and that kind of thing. So it can look at like, data about some of the images it's seen within a page. But Brittany, I don't know if there's sort of other patterns that you've seen where that might also come into play.
I would probably lean more towards Amazon Bedrock or the Amazon Nova Pro in these instances, not necessarily Nova Act. So there is some different articles and blog posts on that as well. So reach out to us on LinkedIn. We can definitely point you to those articles, but I would more lean towards the Amazon Bedrock or Nova Pro for OCR specific.
What I'm seeing is Nova Lite, Premier, and Pro offers the OCR capability, but Nova Micro and Canvas does not. Nova Act is also not there.
Yeah. So basically not, and just to make sure I'm being clear, like when Nova Act is working on a website, it is able to interpret data within a visualization realm, but we're talking about OCR specifically, you're looking at another type of model. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, these are good questions. Anything else before I kind of start setting the stage for the demo, Brittany and Fatima, that you think we should cover? Okay. All right. So I will set the stage for the demo. So what I'm going to do is actually show you kind of like the scenario a little bit more, so you're all prepared. And then I actually have it as a video. I was a little bit nervous about my bandwidth, given that we have a weather factor here and my internet stability. So I'm going to just set the stage on what we're doing and then show you and see what you think. So this is a Nova Act playground that we have. I'm going to be using this. In this case, it's a sample travel website. And this is fun. You can utilize this playground as well. So this is available for people to use. And in this case, you can see we set up, this is sort of a fun site that's going to extraterrestrial locations. So locations outside of Earth, like sometime in the future. And we're calling it next.travels. And we do have destinations. So when you look at the destinations, we do have a choice of different planets that we can go to, and you can see they have attributes about them. And so they have pricing, they have climates, information like that we can use to basically determine like what we want to book, and then also future locations. And then we also have an area where you can book your journey. So this would be like another, any other travel website where you would pick an origin. In this case, I have Boston or San Francisco labs to choose from. And then I have my destinations, which correspond to the ones I had on the other site, and then departure dates. As you go through, it asks for specific information like your name, travel preferences, things like that. So just to set that up a bit, that's the website that we're going to be interacting with. And on here, I'm going to show you just a little bit about my backend architecture, just to kind of get the flow. So this is basically just a lightweight Flask web app I've created. We are authenticating to my backend lab. We're using Nova Act. So we are calling the model that's sitting within my AWS site. And we have a travel booking workflow. And within here, I am going to show you, we have workflow storage and screenshots, which is super cool because it'll actually show me the logic that it used to go through the actions it did. And then I also have some user profiles that I've stored within the Dynamo DB database. So in this case, I'm sort of mirroring, I have customers, they have travel preferences they already know about, and they want to start booking travel using those preferences.
Jane, what cool tool are you in?
Yeah, so this is really cool. I used, when I was building this, I was using Kiro. A lot of you probably know about this already. But I wanted to be able to build like an architecture diagram of what I built, but I didn't want to have to go into Draw and do it manually. So we do have a blog. It walks you through how to integrate Kiro to actually build these architecture diagrams in an automated fashion. So it's super cool. And I think you're going to be posting it here in just a minute. So if you haven't tried that out, I know it's not specifically related to Nova Act, but it could be used for all kinds of architecture diagrams that you might want to build within your Kiro environment as you're playing that. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start my demo, and let's get started. Okay, so in this, you can see this is just a lightweight web front end. I've got my profiles. These are coming from DynamoDB. And so I have different customers that have different attributes. So we have Alex Smith. Travel style might be price driven. They want a temperate climate. Jane Doe, they're looking for more luxury travel. You can see they have things like their birth date, their origin, where they're from within here. And then I'm going to choose John Doe, who likes a rocky terrain and is more value conscious. And again, you can see there's a date of birth that we have of November of 2005. We've got booking windows where John likes to only travel on weekends. And so it's going to feed those into the asks of Nova. Now we've made the call and we've asked it, we want to pick a destination that matches the preferences of this specific traveler. And so it understands I actually need to go to the destinations tab, and it's going to start looking through what are the trips I can book for this customer. Looking through the site. Now, specifically, I have given that this customer in this case likes a rocky climate. And then I've also said it won't serve that more value experience. So we'll see what it comes back with.
So
and again,
Jane,
go ahead.
I had a question on that. So you know, Nova Act would choose the destination based on John's preference for rocky terrain, right? So what is the decision-making process and how does it weigh across multiple preferences?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So that's where giving the instructions to Nova is going to be important, right? Because you might have preferences that are even contradictory, right? Like it might be, this customer wants rocky climate, but they also want a luxury experience or something that lasts over 2 weeks, or things like that. So if you do see, and this is where kind of you want to be validating against a lot of different data. So you can give it things like, I want you to weigh these things more versus other things less. You can do things like, this could be a human in the loop escalation, right? Like, hey, if you see contradictory information, let's go ahead and just have a person actually decide that kind of thing. But this is where actually working with the prompts, testing it out is going to be key, because it can take more than one thing into consideration, but we know that even as we're shopping online and things like that, there can be a lot of options to choose from.
Gotcha.
So it's picked a destination. We're going to see what that is. Now, remember, John, his origin was San Francisco. So in this case, it's going to go ahead and pick that origin because that is in the customer profile. And so it is able to go ahead and determine this is where I need to book from just based upon that data. Oh, excuse me.
There's actually a good comment in here too, that you can have the agents also look at online content like social media and train for some of this as well. So I think that would be a plus in some cases, if you're consistent with travel to certain places. But I think it's also one of those things you would have to put in as a factor, because some people that do work travel and personal travel, they may be completely polar opposites with what happens during those travel trips and locations. I can attest to that. I used to have to travel to Fargo, North Dakota for work. That would not be a spot that I would personally pick in winter for personal travel.
No. And you could set up different profiles. Like that's where this could come into, is it business or leisure? Now it did go ahead and pick the next Saturday that's 2 weeks out for this customer. Because again, that was in the profile, and the wolf 1061 location. I just want to point this out really quick. This is the planet. It's actually the only planet that had a rocky terrain. So in this case, it was able to determine, okay, this one matches. And I did actually say like terrain is like one of the preferences that I really want you to go for this. But you could even do things like, if you wanted to make this a little bit more creative, again, part of that could be the profile. What is that person? Are they looking for places they've never been? Potentially like that. So you can see it can fill in. Not only is it selecting things, it's clicking buttons, it's navigating the site, it's able to fill in forms. The date of birth is a little bit different because you're having to actually navigate through buttons and stuff. It's not just an entry. So in this case, if you'll remember, John I think it was a November baby. In this case. So I think November of 2005. So going through, and all of this is just, I pulled this from the profile, and Novak understands what it means to actually start booking this.
So question, Jane, were you inspired by Dungeons and Dragons with how you have this set up? Because I know we both have a thing where we've done some projects on this before.
No, but I thought this was super cool. I love the fact that it wasn't like we're just going to the normal places. I've had fun reading some of the profiles and look at how many light years away some of this was.
I'm thinking we make a spin-off of this and we create one that actually picks our Dungeons and Dragon maps or creates them in the background. Might be another way to use this.
I like that. Now it did pick, in this case, there was a radio button. It picked a medical implant for my customer because they had this. Now, right now, it's actually changing my cabin class to economy pod. It had premium before, but realizing that this customer is more value driven, was able to make that change. And then I actually told it, once you hit the payment, we're going to just quit there. But I could go through, and this is where you could actually load in, and this is where you can see at the end. This is where, I'll start this back. You could actually go in and say something like, here's the credit card that we're pulling in, et cetera. Like you could complete it end to end. I just, for the sake of the demo, was like, let's stop there. But complete your entire travel booking experience as much as you would want in this case. So yeah, thoughts, questions on any of that as we went through?
I do have a question, Jane. So what is the typical timeline, like from concept to production for a use case similar to what you have done today, right? Let's say we are now thinking of a real booking, online booking, where customers have their own profiles and it needs to go and book tickets for that particular customer. What's that timeline for deployment look like?
Yeah, so I think that's going to vary. Now, I would say to get sort of a few things there. To get started, I think that you can do pretty darn quickly. Full disclosure, when I built my demo, I was using Kiro, CLI, and was like, hey, and I was able to get at least the foundational components working within a few hours. And then it was iterating off of that. At first I had profiles that were just hard coded that we were pulling, but I was pulling in, but then I was like, well, in order to mirror more like what this would look like, let's create a database where we pull them in. And so building out from there, but getting the core components was really straightforward. Again, if you've got a coding companion, lean into that. So yeah, and I'll show you real quick. That actually leads me into a good point. Question for people on the chat. Anybody using Kiro today? Just curious.
Yeah. Everybody.
I think everybody on this call could raise their hand from the video side of it.
Yeah.
It default starts as my computer starts now. That's how much I'm using it.
Well, if you have that, and also if you have a Visual Studio Code or if you have Cursor, oh, cool. That's awesome. You're trialing that.
Nice.
I love that. You can add in the Nova Act plugin. So it can come in just like any other extension. In this case, I was actually reinstalling it this morning. I've got my Nova Act extension, but when you have that, I want to show you, this is actually super cool. And I'm going to pull this over. This is my app, but you can actually pull in, once you have the extension, you can go in here and this will walk you through quite a bit. And the thing I really like about this is they have starter packs. So I just went and started telling Kira, I want you to do this. I want you to do that, right? Like I was just describing what I wanted, but they do have starter packs for specific, if you want to do Q&A testing, data extraction, search and extract, form filling, a workflow. So you could start with one of these starter packs, and it really is a great way to kind of guide you through, in addition to coding companions. And this plugin is compatible, again, with Visual Studio Code, Kiro, and Cursor as well. So if I went through, and I'll just show you this. Let me close this one for a second. We'll let this come up. So the nice thing is when you start a template, it's going to give you basically kind of this sort of 4-step flow that you can think about. So there's the authentication into Nova Act that you would want to deal with. So in this case, whether it's IAM authentication or API key authentication, you can pick whatever that makes sense for your environment. And then it's going to give you like basically kind of a build outline in notebook style. So if you've ever seen kind of notebooks and things like SageMaker and whatnot, you can take each of these pieces and actually go through, run a cell, add a cell, and it gives you kind of the outline that you can take. And again, this could be used in addition to chatting with Kiro and as you add out pieces. So this is where you're actually going to build out the flow. It gives you some examples of what that would look like. And then it'll take you on the journey to run and deploy. But I would say, you could get something going within an hour. Production really comes down to, validation testing at scale. You want to make sure you're throwing enough scenarios at this, and then figuring out how much do you want to be automated versus in the loop, that kind of thing. But pretty straightforward, I would say.
I will say it's very helpful for the initial POC, especially in heavy regulatory environments, but you still have to do the due diligence of use case management, security and compliance testing, regulatory testing. As somebody who's in financial services and has been most of my career, this is speeding up that initial POC, so then you can get to that Q&A and that validation even faster. It's not a replacement, though. I know there's some people that are like, oh, we could just replace it, do it really quick, and then just do a simple review at the end. No, still do your complex reviews. The agents are not smart enough, or we haven't built one that is extremely smart enough to do all of that yet. I think it's always going to have that human edge to it for me specifically. It's trust but verify. I'm sure we've all heard that quite a bit. I love the AI help, but I do want to make sure, I know there's some conversation going on in the chat with that too, just making sure that you can utilize it. Just make sure you're trusting and you're verifying and you're still QAing and you understand your code fully. You shouldn't go in there and just create code and not at least skim through it.
100%. Yeah, make sure that I know Candace is not here today, but she always I love her saying of, treat some of this stuff like a very enthusiastic intern, and then just make sure that you're also there kind of validating, as well, and that you understand, right, like what's actually happening and placing in guardrails as well.
Jane, I was curious, how does Nova Act handle authentication challenges? So when you're going through this and it has to, open a website and, you have the CAPTCHA challenges, how does it handle that?
That is a good question. Brittany, I don't know if you know that, but I don't have that right offhand.
I do not have that article open. We like to be prepared.
I was just thinking.
I will definitely post that in our recap on LinkedIn to make sure we have that. I know there is many steps to it, if I'm remembering correctly as well, because it's similar being in Bedrock too. So I will double check that and add it into our recap on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point then, Jane. and Fatima. If you're not connected with us on LinkedIn, please do, because after these events, what we do is we compile all of the links that are shared and different ideas that are shared and put it in the recap. It also will give you a place where you can see when we're going live next and what the topic is. So feel free to follow us.
One other thing I'll go ahead and just I want to show the folks here, just because, observability is another key piece of all of this. And so, as I'm going through my demo, it's like, part of it is like, okay, what kind of logic, is being used on the back end, because having that transparency allows you to also kind of understand like where maybe logic might not be quite right or something like that. So I do want to show, so in my lab environment, and I'm going to bring this over here on the page. When I go through Nova Act, I'm actually sending the information into a workflow definition. And as you can see, the nice thing with these workflow definitions, and I'm just kind of giving a taste of that, it'll actually kind of showcase like what is the prompt I'm sending to the LLM, and then also shows, okay, this is what the agent is actually coming back with. It's trying to figure out like, how do I put, in this case, you remember the birth date, right? This person was November of 2022. And it's saying, okay, I understand this person was born here. I should click the 22 button on the calendar. And this is where it's going through and being like, okay, all right, this is incorrect. I need to change it. And it'll go through and actually be like, okay, I should click this information. But not only is it kind of going through the logic, but it's giving you screenshots. So this auditability, and this is actually going to an S3 bucket on the back end. So having like this level of visibility. So as you run through and you could be like, is it making the right actions? Is it thinking about booking this in the right way? Do I need to change the prompt? Am I giving it enough information to be correct? Does it have the right context? This is like another piece that is super cool that as I was building, when I first started playing with this, I just saw this and was like, oh, I love this.
So I have a question that goes with one of the comments in the chat that is making me giggle a little bit. If you just saw me giggling off mute or on mute, that's why. So does it matter how we treat our LLMs to make it perform better, or have computers ever come to rule the world? Fatima, Jane, I would love to know your thoughts on this, and then I can give some of my thoughts as well.
Did they say it performs better when you're rude?
Yes. Robert Tables, I like your thinking here with Terminator 2.
Fatima, do you want to take that first?
Sure. So for me, what has really worked is when, not being rude. I've not tried being rude at all. But if you define your prompt really well, define the role, define, what you want it to do. I've had pretty good success interacting with an LLM, but I have not tried being rude at all.
Okay.
You have to try that.
Jane, have you tried anything like that?
I am firm when I interact with LLMs. I don't think rude, but I am firm. And I have pushed back because sometimes I've seen where I'm trying to, basically I'm like, no, we need to rethink through that logic, and I might see flaws in the logic. So I try to be just very firm, like, this is what I want. And I am very clear about, let's think about it step by step, just to make sure that we're validating the logic along the way. And I think that's where too, you understanding how these things work and also what you're trying to achieve. Like you understand, like if you're automating a workflow, you understand that workflow best. Like, so to me, firm, and then, basically not completely trusting is a good way to go.
So I will let you ladies laugh at me a little bit, because I don't know if you all have heard me say this before. Any LLM that I have that is only for my personal use, the prompt that I actually put in the README file for the LLM is, treat me like a New Yorker. I don't need you to empathize with me, and I don't need a long explanation. So Robert Tables, you're saying you say thank you to Alexa and Siri, and I'm over here. Oh, I'm over here yelling, you didn't answer that correctly. So Terminator 2, I might need to be scared of. But I will say I think it's all about your style too, because if you're building for larger audiences, you may want it to respond in a more, I would say, neutral or encompassing way. But like personally, when I'm building something for my personal use, I'm like, I just want it short and sweet. Tell me how it is and tell me it quick. And if I have questions, I can always ask back for additional questions. So it is definitely something as you get more and more into it, I think you find like your rhythm. And you see like the Alexa Plus has longer explanations and a little bit more of a personality now. And I'm like, I miss my old one, but you can change it back. Awesome. So I do want to mention too, I did throw the LinkedIn for Nova Act Playground into the YouTube and Twitch chats, just in case you want to play in the gym. It's called a gym. So I did throw that in there. Jane had gotten that up and ready. But any questions you all have, throw them in the chat. Keep them coming. I love how active our audience is today, especially for a snowed in day for us on the East Coast. So, or Texas as your iced end.
I will say too, and this is like, I love this, Jim. And what I've seen too is the team is behind this. I don't know who they are, but they are actively changing it. So I've seen things come out which have been really cool. But this is a great play just to start kicking the tires. We also have, and you might have already posted it, Brittany, but I know we've got some great like Nova Act example code out there in some of our official repositories. So if we haven't posted that yet, I would say we can get that posted. So if you're even looking for ideas on just to build your first run through, in this case, shocking, I don't actually run a travel website, but I've booked travel. So to me, this resonated because I understood at least the pieces behind it and felt like this was a great way to get an example that resonated with me.
I will say go adventure on GitHub. I have found so many different really cool ones to check out and to try as well.
Yeah. So I guess just a few other examples if we don't have any, any other questions right now, but I did want to just kind of talk about multi-agent collaboration within Nova Act. So one thing that you will see as you start to play with it, you'll start off generally with kind of a simple, a simple ask. You might say, I want you to just book travel. And then as you go over, it might be like there are more steps involved. And so you might want to think about over time, do you have potentially multiple agents? Now I created, this is, a more straightforward approach because I'm not doing this at scale, but, you might have an agent potentially that's specifically going in and doing things like, I'm going to just look up a destination that matches and then feed that into another agent who's actually doing the booking. Or you might have an agent that is actually able to interact with, with users as you're like collecting data for that database and you're populating that. So any other, I guess, Brittany, Fatima, like as you think through and you've seen kind of these multi-agent collaboration patterns with your customers, any sort of tips or tricks that you have?
Don't try to one size fit all, I think is my biggest thing to tell folks. If you get really excited about one AI tool, don't put your blinders on. Make sure that you're checking out to make sure it's the right fit for the use case. I think as we do these, I get really excited and then I'm like, oh, can I fit this in there? And if it's a square peg in a round hole, it's not going to fit or it's not going to do everything that I want to do. So as the complexities come in, make sure you're pausing and evaluating. I know we're all trying to move really fast right now, but that would be my biggest thing right now that I've seen.
Nice. I don't have anything specific I've seen so far.
Yeah. Have either of you come just thinking through just, sort of use cases that you have seen or that resonate with customers coming to you with like, hey, this is sort of a pain point or something that's taking a lot of time that, they've looked at this, or you think this makes sense for them?
I would say when you're form filling or data entry has been one of the big ones that I've seen where this can play a part. But there's also complexities to it. So you got to make sure that it's just that. You're not putting it to all the other things, because I know it's not just data entry. There's other pieces that'll have to go into that puzzle. But that would be, I think, the biggest one that I see where Nova Act plays a part for me.
There's another question in the chat. Let me just show that. Are folks using this for UI testing applications and or A/B testing?
It's a great question.
Yeah. So I think that something like this, like as you're looking at like release management, and again, kind of thinking that, we want to go through testing, we've made significant changes maybe to a UI, right? And we want to see like how that workflow interacts, that kind of thing. Those are areas where I think certainly this would be a use case for something like this, just wanting to make sure that the flow makes sense, because the fact that you can make it not as, you're not setting out like, again, step 1, step 2, step 3, click this, click that, this is where it adapts to changes easily.
And there is, if I remember correctly, Jane, hold me accountable, I believe you can create a UI agent in the playground and actually test it out, if I'm remembering correctly. But I can check the site really quick as well.
There is, and I think I know what you're thinking about. Let's validate on that, because there is like sort of live testing, that basically kind of live debugging kind of features that I have seen in there as well. But that might be different than what you're thinking too.
Yeah, I think there is one in there. But I will say I have seen some articles posted on this too, so I can take that follow-up and grab one of those blog posts and throw them into our recap.
Cool.
So Jane, as you mentioned about the live auditing, right? Do you know, or if this can be integrated with any other monitoring systems? Like as we went through the demo and we saw what exactly it's doing, can it be like then funneled so that can be monitored?
So you can, even with my testing, I was seeing where you could like basically pull this into like a log, right? You can create like your own log file, and then, and you could do all kinds of things with that, right? Like you treat it like any other sort of logging, service at that point. So you could go through and parse through the data, look for certain patterns, that sort of thing as you're going through. I mean, it just depends on what kind of error handling you're putting in, and it will capture that logic if you're asking it to explicitly do so. I did want to mention too, most of you, if you've built things with AWS, just a note that this does integrate within CloudWatch metrics as well. So that's going to be more for actual like model invocation, token usage, things of that nature. So if you're also wanting to look at kind of performance and things of that within Nova Act itself, which is going to be in conjunction with actually like the traceability of what is happening, that's just another call out that this also integrates with that.
Awesome.
That's good.
All right, I'm double checking the chat. Don't see any other questions.
Okay.
Fatima, do you have any other questions for Jane? I might have one more. I know
I do have just one more. You mentioned, I know that architecture diagram came into my mind again, and you had Nova Act integrate with S3, you had it integrate with DynamoDB, and you also right now mentioned CloudWatch Metrics is also integrated. Are there any other services, is it integrated with majority of the services, or is there anything explicitly that's not integrated yet?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So like it does integrate with identity, or I'm using my IAM credentials to be able to call it. So like when you're looking at permissions, there is also integration with Agent Core. So if folks here are familiar who are familiar with Agent Core, I know that that's been a big topic, right, with my customers who are building more of these agentic models and basically kind of getting all this to work together. So there is integration there.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I had something else that was coming to mind and then it went out. If I think of it, I will bring it back around.
So Brittany had a question. Go ahead, Brittany.
I did. And Jane knows I like these types of questions. If you had to pick one feature or functionality out of Nova Act, what is your favorite?
Oh my gosh.
I know I didn't prep you for this one either.
Yeah. I think I really like the fact that when I think of like more of just being able to describe from a visualization factor, that's one, like that visual understanding to me is a big one. So the fact that it can actually look at things like let's say in this case I had a seating chart on an airplane. Like I like the window seat, right? I'm a window seat person and I like front of the plane. I love the fact that I could be like, look, my preference is, I want to get off the plane as quickly as possible and get my window seat, like book whatever fits that kind of thing. Yeah. And it could handle that. So that would be me.
I love that it's travel oriented too. I know you love travel as well. So Jane, with that, any parting comments for the team as they go out and try Nova Act?
I would just say, if you haven't played with it, even if you haven't, like if you've got a use case in mind, let's just try it, right? Like literally within a few minutes, I think you could start just at least seeing that evolve. Don't be afraid to play. And if you don't have something in mind, I think it's worth just putting in one of the examples just to kick the tires, because I know personally, I feel like this is kind of like one of those things that's not talked about as much, but is super useful.
Awesome. Fatima, any closing words before I close us out for today?
Thank you. I got to learn so much about Nova Act in the process. So thank you for sharing what you have built, Jane. This was great.
So Jane, I will leave us with go try it. I know we always say go build at the end of these. Have fun. Reach out to us on LinkedIn as you're building. Share with us what you're building and keep the community going. And just so everyone knows, AWS She Builds is now on bi-weekly. So we're not going to be every Monday. We'll be every other Monday, but we will be with you for an hour every other Monday. Shout out to our producer, Kian, in the background. I know we don't always get to talk about you, but appreciate all of the things that you're doing on the back end to make sure everyone's having a great experience. And we will see you all in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.